You sit down in a quiet meeting room on a Tuesday afternoon. Your boss slides a piece of paper across the table. It has a shiny new title and a bigger salary attached to it. Every instinct tells you to sign it right away. You feel like saying yes is the only way to prove you're actually winning at work. But for roughly 60% of people, taking that promotion is the fastest way to wreck both your earning potential and your daily sanity. It sounds totally crazy at first. You wonder why anyone in their right mind would ever turn down more money and a step up the ladder. The answer comes down to a very real economic trap called the Peter Principle. We spend our entire lives terrified of falling behind our friends. That fear makes us ignore the warning signs. We grab the cash, then we wake up a year later completely dreading the alarm clock. This isn't just a funny joke about bad corporate bosses. It's a mathematical certainty. It explains exactly why your manager seems so lost, and how you can keep yourself from making the exact same mistake. If you just keep climbing blindly, you will eventually reach a level where you fail. Saying no to a promotion might actually be the most profitable career move you ever make. You probably treat your career like a video game. You just keep pushing buttons to level up until you finally beat the final boss. But the real world doesn't work like that. Moving up often changes the genre of the game entirely. Imagine you spend years playing a fast-paced shooter where you play as the top sniper. You know every corner of the map, you rarely miss a shot. Then you beat the level, and suddenly the screen switches to a resource management game. Now you're just moving spreadsheets around and balancing budgets. If you're a world-class sniper but a terrible accountant, that promotion just ruined your life. We force people into these traps all the time because we measure the wrong things. We think a title bump cures burnout, but it usually just adds a whole new layer of anxiety. You go from feeling like an expert to feeling like a fraud. You start wondering if you lost your edge. But you didn't lose anything. You just agreed to play a completely different sport without reading the rules. Later on, the data will break this down completely. A massive study of sales teams proves this exact point. Then, mapping out a specific way to turn down a promotion becomes much easier. You can walk away without looking like you just gave up on your career. This is all about learning how to stay put strategically. A guy named Lawrence Peter noticed this exact pattern back in 1969. He wrote a book that started as a joke about boring office life, but it quickly became a core idea for anyone trying to figure out how businesses actually run. His main point hits incredibly hard because it feels so true. He argued that in any company hierarchy, every worker eventually rises to their level of incompetence. Think about how this plays out in your own life. You started a new job, you care about the work, and you get really good at it. Your boss notices your hard work, so they hand you a promotion. Now you sit in a tougher seat, you put in the extra hours, you figure out the new problems, and you master that job too. So they bump you up again. This cycle just keeps spinning. Your talent forces you upward until you finally land in a spot where you flat out suck. Maybe the daily pressure is too intense. Maybe the new tasks feel completely foreign to how your brain works. Whatever the reason, you stop hitting home runs. Your daily confidence drops. You start dreading Sunday nights because you know Monday morning is coming. The reward for doing great work is getting pushed into a corner where you can't do great work anymore. You hit a wall in your new role, and then the worst part of the trap snaps shut. Once you reach that struggling phase, what Lawrence Peter called your final placement, the upward momentum dies. Nobody hands you another promotion because you aren't doing a great job anymore. But here's the crazy catch. The company usually doesn't fire you either. You just sort of hang there in middle management purgatory. You turn into a human roadblock. You spend the next 10 years stuck in a job you deeply hate, feeling stressed out every single day. And worse, you block the hungry younger workers below you from moving up. This system literally takes your best skills and efficiently turns them into incompetence. We see this all the time. Think about the boss who sends angry emails at 2 a.m. over tiny mistakes. They aren't a bad person. They are just a highly capable worker who got promoted way past their comfort zone, and now they live in a state of permanent panic. They probably miss the days when they just did the actual work. They trade their peace of mind for a corner office and a parking spot, and they regret it every single day. Take a brilliant software developer at a fast-growing tech startup. Let's call him Dave. Dave writes cleaner code than anyone else on his floor. He fixes massive bugs before breakfast and totally understands the deep architecture of the product. The founders want to reward him, so they make him the new head of engineering. On a piece of paper, this looks great. It's a natural step up, but the daily reality of an engineering boss has absolutely nothing to do with writing code. Dave now spends his time breaking up fights between grumpy designers, sitting through endless budget meetings, and typing out boring performance reviews. These tasks take serious soft skills. You need a ton of patience, deep empathy, and a high tolerance for office politics. Dave might have zero natural talent for any of that. Almost overnight, the startup loses its very best builder and gains a totally average boss. Everybody loses. You might hear this and think you'd handle it better. You tell yourself you're smart enough to just learn the people skills on the fly. That is just human optimism talking, and the hard numbers tell a much darker story. Researchers looked at 53,000 workers to see if this trap actually exists in the real world. A few years ago, a team published a huge paper in the Quarterly Journal of Economics. They dug into data from over 200 different companies. They focused specifically on salespeople and their bosses. Sales gives you incredibly clean data because the math never lies. You either close the deal and hit your numbers, or you go home empty-handed. It removes all the fuzzy subjective feelings from the equation. The study uncovered a painfully clear pattern across the board. The absolute strongest predictor of who got a management badge was pure sales volume. If you brought in a lot of cash, you got the corner office. At first glance, that feels totally fair to us. We all want to believe hard work and top-tier results lead to bigger rewards. It gives us a sense of control over our crazy lives, but promoting based only on raw output completely ignores what the next job actually entails. We reward the winner of a sprint by forcing them to run a marathon, and then act shocked when they pass out on the first mile. The data turned ugly the moment those top sellers actually took over a team. The researchers found a massive negative correlation. The better a person performed on the sales floor, the worse they performed as a leader. Those superstar closers dragged down the overall performance of their new teams. Groups run by totally average salespeople consistently beat the teams run by the former heavy hitters. The reason comes down to the core nature of the work itself. Crushing a sales quota is often a very selfish lone wolf game. It takes raw aggression, endless hustle, and a sharp focus on your own personal scoreboard. You learn to protect your leads and hide your best tactics. Leading a team takes the exact opposite traits. You have to share credit, coach struggling rookies, and show deep patience when someone drops the ball. By pushing their top earners up the ladder, these companies remove their best money makers from the street. Then they dump them into a role where they actively ruin the performance of everyone around them. It destroyed value on both ends of the equation. The researchers found something incredibly sad when they looked at who missed out on those promotions. The data showed exactly what makes a great boss. The best leaders were the folks who built a track record of helping peers on complex deals. They happily shared info and played well with others, even if their own personal sales numbers looked a little soft. But those natural collaborators rarely got the nod for a bigger job. Management just couldn't see past the flashy revenue metrics of the loud guys. This proves the Peter Principle is not just a random accident of corporate life. It is a deep structural flaw in how we measure human potential. We constantly assume talent moves in a straight vertical line. We tell ourselves that if you dominate level 1, you will naturally crush level 2. But human skills run in horizontal lines. Being a world-class chef tells you absolutely nothing about whether you can manage the payroll for a busy restaurant. We ruin perfectly happy careers by ignoring this basic truth. Economists at Stanford just added another brutal layer to this whole problem. They treated career progress as a cold statistical puzzle, focusing on a concept called regression to the mean. Think about how promotions actually happen in real life. To score a big leap forward, you almost always need a spectacular highlight reel kind of year. You have to absolutely blow past your goals. Now, huge success in any job is a messy mix of actual skill and pure dumb luck. You probably brought a lot of talent to the table, but you also probably caught a lucky break. Maybe the whole market ran hot, or maybe you landed one giant whale of a client by accident. When you grab a new title based on that crazy peak year, your future results will mathematically drift back down towards your normal average. Your lucky streak fades away right as you step into a much harder job. It feels like hitting a brick wall. This explains why so many fast-rising stars suddenly crash and burn a year after getting the big corner office. Your bosses look at that sudden drop and assume you lost your touch. To them, it looks like you somehow forgot how to work hard. But in reality, the company just picked you at your absolute highest peak and set you up for a brutal statistical correction. You didn't fail the role. The deeply flawed promotion system failed you. This puts the burden entirely on you to spot the trap before it springs. Building a career based on cold math instead of workplace peer pressure is the only way to protect your long-term wealth and peace of mind. Keeping these kinds of rational, data-first strategies in your feed by subscribing makes it much easier to block out that noisy office pressure. Understanding the statistical reality gives you leverage. It frees you from feeling like you constantly owe your boss a higher level of output. Next, we have to completely destroy the way you currently picture your daily grind. Most people see their career path as a tall wooden ladder, where you just stubbornly climb one step at a time until you finally retire or burn out. We need a totally new picture. Picture a blank piece of paper on your desk. You draw a simple chart with 2 lines. The line going up the left side measures how good you actually are at your daily tasks. The line running across the bottom shows your job level. For most of us, that skill line doesn't just climb straight up into the sky forever. It follows a very specific curve. You start at the very bottom as a junior worker. Everything feels new and a little overwhelming. You ask a lot of questions, you make some mistakes, but you learn fast and your skill line shoots up quickly. This early phase feels exciting because you can see yourself getting sharper every single week. You feel a real sense of momentum. People notice you putting the pieces together, the company sees your growth and starts thinking about your future. This is the exact moment the trap gets set. We build our entire sense of self-worth around this early momentum. We assume the feeling of getting better will just continue forever as long as we keep moving up the board. You eventually hit the sweet spot. You become the senior analyst on your team. The daily work matches your brain wiring perfectly. You know the software and you understand the clients. You rarely need to ask for help. Your skill line hits a high plateau and stays there. You're completely in your zone. You leave the office at 5 o'clock feeling genuinely useful. You sleep well at night because you know exactly what tomorrow brings. You know you can handle it. This feeling of mastery is incredibly rare. It brings massive value to your mental health. You finally built a daily routine that doesn't drain your soul. You have time for your family, your hobbies, and your own physical health. But corporate culture hates a plateau. Your boss looks at your amazing output and decides you need a new challenge. They think they're doing you a favor. They assume a happy worker is a bored worker who needs more responsibility. They completely ignore the massive value of letting a talented person just do what they do best. They ruin your daily rhythm. Then you take the manager role, you pack up your desk and move to a new spot. Suddenly, the actual tasks change completely. The line on your personal skill graph starts to drop. You stop doing the deep analysis you love. Now you spend your days managing the people doing that work. You feel okay at it, but you definitely don't feel great. A year later, you get bumped up to director. Now the job turns into pure office politics and big picture strategy. Your skill line completely crashes. You feel like you're drowning in endless meetings. You spend 6 hours a day looking at slides instead of building anything real. This is what breaks people. They spend years working incredibly hard just to reach a level where they feel totally helpless. The pressure wakes you up at 3 a.m. You stare at the ceiling. You wonder how you ended up so stressed out when you did everything right. You follow the rules and you chase the gold stars. Your reward is a daily calendar full of things you hate doing. Your company forces you to climb a ladder that only goes in one direction. It pushes you sideways across that chart, moving you further away from your actual strengths. Your real talents run in a flat horizontal line. As long as your job duties stay below that line, you feel totally safe. The second the new job requirements cross above your natural skill level, you enter the danger zone. The saddest part is how we handle this transition. We literally celebrate the exact moment you become bad at your job. We take you out for drinks, we buy a cake, you update your profile, and all your friends send congratulatory messages. Everyone cheers while you walk right off a cliff. We tie our entire identity to these shiny new titles. We crave the social validation so badly, we ignore the knot in our stomach telling us this new role is a terrible fit. The smartest, quietest move you can make is to look closely at your own chart. You find the exact spot where your skills peak. You set up camp right there. Your boss is basically asking for a financial trade. When they offer you a new title, you give up your current comfort and your deep mastery of the work. In return, you get a bit more status and a bump in your paycheck. But you also take on a mountain of invisible risks. You risk burning out completely. You risk getting fired because you simply can't deliver the results they expect from that new chair. You risk hating your entire life because your schedule fills up with useless catch-up calls. Think about your job as an expected utility curve. That just means adding up your daily happiness and your money and then subtracting your stress. For the first few promotions, early in your 20s, the extra cash easily outweighs the new stress. Your overall utility goes up. A few extra dollars really changes your life at that age. But you eventually reach a harsh tipping point. The math flips upside down. The raises get smaller after taxes, but the pressure multiplies fast. You end up trading your peace of mind for a tiny bump in your bank account. It barely covers your new therapy bills. A massive chunk of workers hit this exact tipping point in their 30s. Moving past that spot ruins the math. You might get a 20% bump in your base pay, but you take on a 50% increase in your daily stress levels. You also face a much higher chance of failing completely. Any rational person looks at those numbers and walks away immediately. It's a trade with terrible expected value. You risk your best skills just to chase a tiny bit of upside. Yet millions of smart professionals make this exact bad trade every single year. We let fear make our choices. We worry that if we decline the offer, our bosses will think we lack ambition. We worry about getting left behind while our friends buy nicer cars. So we ignore the basic math of our own lives. We say yes to the money, and we silently hope the stress will somehow just disappear. But the stress never goes away. It just builds up until it ruins your health and wrecks your weekends. You have to learn how to stop this cycle before it stops you. You sit at your kitchen table and run the hard numbers. You stare at the shiny offer letter, you read the new job description, and you realize it's a total trap. The new duties push you way past your natural comfort zone. So how do you actually decline it without destroying your reputation? You can't just walk into the manager's office and say you prefer to take it easy. You have to frame your answer with careful strategy. The first move is a personal skills audit. You sit down and separate the new paycheck from the new duties. Most of us really just want the extra cash. We don't actually want to deal with other people's problems all day long. You need to pivot the conversation entirely. You want to talk about how you can create more profit for the company. You want to get paid for it without changing your core daily function. You have to show them that keeping you in your current role is their most profitable choice. You act like a high-end consultant, advising them on the best way to use their top asset. You can build a custom path that keeps you doing the actual work. This idea is huge in tech companies right now, but you can push for it in almost any field. You sit across from your manager and keep a very calm, confident tone. You tell them you feel honored by the offer. Then you explain that you drive the highest return on investment by doing the ground level work. You tell them you want to double down on being the absolute best specialist on the payroll. You ask them to build a custom track for you. You offer to tackle the nastiest, most complex projects. You offer to train the new hires. You ask for a bump in your pay to match this higher output, but you insist on keeping your current title. You frame this entire refusal as a massive commitment to excellence. You literally protect the company from getting another bad manager. If your boss looks at you and says no, that tells you everything. If they force you to manage people just to earn a raise, you work for a broken company. You need to start updating your resume immediately. You make the ultimate power move when you turn down a shiny new title. It proves you know exactly what your time is worth. It shows you understand your own unique strengths. You send a very loud signal of quiet confidence. You basically tell the room that you don't need a fancy word next to your name to feel important. Surprisingly, the people who stay planted in the jobs they actually rock at often build the strongest job security. The folks constantly climbing the ladder become very easy to replace. They usually operate right on the shaky edge of their own limits. When the economy slows down and the layoffs start rolling through the building, middle managers get cut first. The company strips away the layers of bloated leadership, but the people who actually build the physical product usually keep their desks. The ones writing the core code or closing the biggest sales stay employed. They are completely secure because they do the hard, tangible work that keeps the lights on. Sticking to your core craft protects your paycheck far better than a big ego ever could. You will run right into this trap if you ignore the hard math of your career. The big sales studies prove it, and the brutal numbers guarantee it will catch you if you aren't careful. If you just close your eyes and say yes to every single shiny offer your boss dangles in front of you, the ending is entirely predictable. You will eventually wake up in a room you don't understand. You will do tasks you absolutely hate, just waiting for the day they finally fire you. The smartest person in any office is rarely the boss or the senior director. The real genius is the person who climbed just high enough to find their perfect balance of money and happiness. Then they had the incredible discipline to stop climbing. They focused on maximizing their daily joy instead of their email signature. That's how you actually win the long game. If rethinking your career math gave you a different perspective today, dropping a like really helps push this data to folks who need it. Taking a hard look at your own limits usually saves you years of quiet misery down the road.